Okay, we have John Mata. Well, what can you say about John? He's like everything. He's a activator, therapist, designer, foot collaborator, fool, collaborator, local, and lover of San Antonio. He's a great disc jockey. You know him, you love him. He's just everywhere. He's San Antonio's dapper little hunk boy. Let's give it up for John Mata.
All right, so one thing, here's what I'm going to talk about, and there's three things that I think inform my art and more importantly myself as an individual, and that is expansive space, contractive space, and dealing with the issue of anxiety. So here I am at the age of 7, about there, and discovering the Polaroid for the first time, and also discovering myself and really beginning to ask the question early on of who is this person, right? What is this person? And continuing on with that, I found myself, around 16, 17, getting a phone call from my grandfather and hearing him telling me a story of him, falling ill, and me immediately thinking of space as something completely expansive. I don't know why, but that image came into my head, right? Space. And then the other one was this idea of heaven, which was where I thought he would be going if he was going to be dying, right? And but I thought that was a bit of a contradiction because heaven seemed to be focused on objects and so forth. And with those objects became this idea of contraction, right? Focusing in. And that's around the time where I came across these two loonies, these two guys. In high school, you couldn't you couldn't throw a rock without hitting a poster of theirs in the art room or whatever. But I thought that they focused on these two issues, which was expansion and contraction. And here's Dali's metamorphosis of Narcissus, and I think it deals with expansion. And now, that idea of contraction in space being somewhat contractive and moving in, we have this hyperbolic pattern that's designed by M.C. Escher called the circle limit of 3. And this is an example of just that approach to space. So before college, I was grappling with these complex issues of expansion and contraction as all very kind of too much for me, but I happened to come across this group of fun bunch at San Antonio College, and they were kind of like-minded in exploring some similar ideas. And this is where I became introduced to the theory behind Gestalt psychology and design. And so here you have Gestalt as being a term which just kind of means a unified whole, right? The sum is other than the great of its parts, not, the same. So here I am back out of college, and I got introduced to the San Antonio art scene down in Southtown. And this is an image of me DJing early on at the compound where the Gallery Sala Diaz is. And I became introduced to an artist named Felix Gonzalez Torres, and also the concept of relational aesthetics, wherein the art isn't necessarily about the image, but more about the relationship between the art, the artist, and the person experiencing it all. Again, working with this idea of contraction and expansion in this sense of a give and take, right? The art seems to disappear eventually. And this is one of my pieces called My Facade Says a Lot About Who I'm Not. And again, dealing with relational aesthetics, you can't see inside, but I'm kind of like skipping out on art and getting ready to move on into the world of DJing and exploring another approach to dealing with the relational space. Here's an image of a disco ball from an installation, right? So my thought was wasn't really getting the feel for what I wasn't really getting it from art. I wanted to get more of a tactile feeling. And so DJing got me that, right, until it got all too fun and all too heavy. And so, working with that kind of ebb and flow of play on the dance floor was great, but I still wanted more. And so I formed this band called Dark Plains, which was to kind of talk about all of these issues that I was dealing with and struggling with. And but yet again, it just wasn't enough. And like a superhero, right? Like Coach Popovich, this is an illustration of mine for the current. I wanted to kind of unleash that superhero within me, right? Wanted to shed the external skin. So I took a trip down to Mexico City, where I kind of explored the world of psychedelics, and also I was introduced to the antigen 5-MeO-DMT. Still constantly searching for that answer of, what is in between expansion and contraction. There's got to be something, right? And so I decided to dimension it and find it. And you'll see the, I guess, a visual representation of what it's kind of like to experience that 0 point for the first time and truly having that answer. Extremely unbelievable and awakening, and it was just like a giant boom. It came out. And so here I am, right, before smiling and completely after smiling through that experience of having that kind of point of I don't know, understanding, right, that silence, completely experiencing the unknown, which is, for me, nothing. And here we have a picture of the San Antonio River, right? Very postcard, but it's a picture that I took. And the reason why I included this in this program is because I feel at peace with where I am and who I am. And I love this city, and it brings me great joy. And I'm glad to be up here and whatever. Share this with you guys. Thank you so much. Too kind. Yeah, let's make sense.
During the break, we will be providing some hallucinogens back in the back, so you can experience what he's experiencing. But gosh, I had so many questions. So let's say if there was like a book that you could read to introduce yourself to these concepts and these feelings, is there some essay or something that really triggered this exploration?
Yeah, you could read something called The Spirit Molecule. DMT, the Spirit Molecule, will get you an introduction to go deeper and deeper down this rabbit hole.
Okay, is there one that doesn't involve drugs? Just for PechaKucha's sake.
Sure, you can, I would say one way to get to this point of silence is to work on yourself through meditation, through yoga, through getting out in nature, finding silence where it still exists. That is the best way, I think.
Did you, so when you were growing up, did you always find that there was like a certain amount of anxiety in your life and that needed to be corralled?
Yeah. Yes. Well, my grandmother on my father's side was a healer, and I think a lot of what she was involved with was it's kind of passed on or was encoded in my DNA, and I think that's where it kind of I got where I got it all from. This kind of connection to wanting to understand that 0 point or that area of silence. And just for our peace of mind, you are in a good place right now, and you are happy. And yes.
Well, we're glad to hear that. Yeah, we're glad to have you around. Well, thank you very much. One of the more enlightening PechaKucha presentations. Let's give it a John Mata.